discussing their work, which you will find to be their latest post on their Instagram page, right? And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Gayatri and Alka to please take it ahead.
Thank you very much, Apeksha.
Thank you.
Um, I'll start the presentation and then Gayatri will join in later. Let me share my screen now. Can everybody see this?
Yes, Alka.
Great. Hello. As Apeksha has already said, my name is Alka Hingorani and I teach at the IDC School of Design in IIT Bombay. What you're seeing on the screen right now, you will notice that LETS actually is an acronym to two different names. On the left-hand side of your screen, it's Learn English Through Stories. And on the right-hand side, it says Learn Through Stories. And I'm going to give you a brief idea of the journey of LETS from learning English to learning through stories in the next few slides. It began as a research project at IIT Bombay in 2014-15 and grew into the foundation that it is today, about 7 years after it had gestated at IIT Bombay. In 2021, it became the Learn Through Stories Foundation. And we've been together, Gayatri Thakur as CEO and co-founder, Professor Aarti Kalro, also of IIT Bombay, as co-founder, and myself. Let me start by showing you a short film that will give you a sort of an overview of what were the issues that we were working on when we first began this project. There are many things that this film has already sort of mentioned in the headings of various sections of it. I'm going to talk about them briefly. If there's anything that I miss out and that someone's interested in knowing more about, please feel free to ask me questions about it. There are two schools that are largely represented in this short film. The first one comes from this region. We are in Himachal Pradesh, on the other side of Jalodi Pass, for those of you who know the Kullu and the Parvati valleys. And the village name is Khund, and it's at about 9,500 feet above sea level. Really remote location. It's a place that I became acquainted with when I was doing my dissertation research in the Kullu and Parvati valleys. I got to know a few teachers in the high schools over there. And when I returned to visit some of them in 2013-14, one of the things that came up was that they had very little means of teaching the English language to their students. It had been a subject forever and more, of course, but these teachers were now finding the difficulty of teaching English to be a real problem because connectivity had reached the hills. A lot of these teachers had smartphones by this time, and they noticed that there was material on the web that they could use both pedagogically and just as illustrative of the subjects or topics that they were teaching in school. But this is true even now. 10 years ago, it was even more true that upwards of 2/3 of the material on the web is in English. And so not knowing English, which is the way that they had pulled along until that time without any difficulty or problem, not knowing English had become a problem by this time, right? And because their own English was weak, they were like, oh, can you help us figure out how we can teach these kids English so that we can use the web as a teaching tool? Now, one of the things that most of you probably know is that English as a second language or a foreign language has been taught for, since the beginning of time, right? So there are many pedagogies that exist for teaching English as a foreign language or English as a second language. And so one of the things we suggested to them was that they should use those existing pedagogies, cull what is useful to them, and see if that's helpful. When they sought our help for that as well, is when we began to work our way through what existed as methods for teaching English to a population that neither spoke nor heard it. There was very little use for that language in these hills until they wanted to start using the web for teaching. Most of you who have ever worked your way through ESL or EFL methods will know that the thing that they share is their origins in various parts of Europe, which means that they share a certain sense of middle classness, a certain sense of context that from one country to the next can be transferred without much difficulty, can be translated, can be understood. When we come to countries like ours, none of that really works. Would you give me a second? I'm going to just pull down the curtains over here because my face is going to fade from the screen otherwise in a moment. I'm sorry. Thank you for waiting. Anyway, so that was a real difficulty, that you're using material where the language is foreign, of course, but all the ways in which it is being taught are also foreign to you. All the things that it talks about is also foreign to you. And it doesn't mean that you can't learn that way. It just means that it increases the distance, on the one hand, between the learner and the material to be learned. On the other hand, the learner is never present in the story that they're learning from. And both of those issues, as I speak of this a little bit more, are things that I'm going to highlight. We had begun art workshops in these schools. This school is in Khund. This student is from the school in Khund. We had begun art workshops over there as an ice-breaking exercise. We just thought, it'd be a fun thing to do with kids. They'd get to know us a little bit better. And, we'd see whether we could talk to them about other ways of learning language. What we discovered when we were doing this is a really powerful way of representing yourself, representing your context, telling your story. And even though I'm going to call them storytellers, I do want to make one thing clear. All of us have stories to tell, but it is a falsehood that all of us are storytellers. Storytelling is a skill. It is an art form, right? It doesn't mean that just because I have a story to tell, I'm going to be able to tell it well. And you can be the judge of that after this presentation for me. So anyway, this is a child who's copying an illustration that we had taken for this art workshop, and we had challenged them to tell us stories based on these illustrations that had been made originally by students from the design school, from the IDC School of Design at IIT Bombay. They surprised us at every turn. And so these art and storytelling workshops that we began as icebreakers became somehow much more potent, much more powerful, as a means of probably trying to create content, trying to create the material that can then be turned around and used for learning, right? In our most recent National Education Policy, NEP, as a lot of you will know, they have had the audacity, the courage, the foresight to talk about art as pedagogy. I think it's absolutely wonderful. We also come to it a bit late, I think. I mean, there are many, many other places where its use as pedagogy has proved to be really potent. But what I worry about over here is not that we have finally come to it, but that we haven't been told how to go about doing this. When I say how, I'm not talking about the ways and means of introducing art in the classroom. I'm talking about the cultural shift that is required in order to think of art not just as pastime. Most things in our country that are playful in any way at all tend to be seen as ways to pass the time of day. Art falls in that category. And when it comes into school curriculum, it is one of the more marginalized parts of our curriculum, right? But as you will see from what we have been able to do in the last 10 years with these children, there may be a lot of potential in this. We have seen it along a few axes. My hope is that as I share this with all of you, you will show us many other ways in which this can be carried forward. This is the other school that was represented in the film. This is Gram Mangal in village Aina in Dahanu, which is a couple of hours away from Bombay. And we moved to working with this school in the early years, partly because it took a really long time to reach Khun. It would take us a day and a half starting from Bombay, flying into Delhi, then taking a bus into Kullu, taking another taxi from Kullu to these villages to even reach those schools. And so if there was any kind of iterative designing that was required, any changes that we wanted to bring about to the ways in which we sort of worked the process out or interacted with young people or allowed them that space to interact with us and collaborate with us, all of those things took a long time because to plan, a trip that far away was a much bigger deal. So we moved to this school called Gram Mangal in the Hanu district. And as you can see from these pictures here, it shows one of our early design associates, Aarti Latkar, working with young people and doing the pre-intervention proficiency level test. And we were trying to look at what would happen after we had introduced certain other ways of learning language and whether that showed a small significant shift after given a period of time in the ways in which language improved for them. You'll see also on this slide that we've put down activity-based learning, language acquisition through listening, reading aloud, voice recording, feedback, and so on. All of those were processes that we used, but we used them through art workshops, through illustrations, through storytelling, and then through the materialization of the effort of these children into things that they themselves could use for learning language. As with any language, listening to it is terribly important in order to get a sense of the rhythm, the meter, to understand pronunciation, to be one with the flow and fluency of it. So we used short films that were available on the web, free of cost, with voiceovers and things, and had them listen to these things independent of any oversight. That was one of the other things that we thought was terribly important, that when teachers were present, there was a certain hesitation that these children experienced when learning. And so what we tried to do was create a mode by which these children could access the stories independent of any other adult presence and spend time listening to them and then recording their own voice, repeating those stories. And this is the area in which a lot of them did this. There were two drawbacks with this. There was a lot that's positive. As I said, you're listening to stories, you're getting a sense of what the language is like and so on. But there are two drawbacks to it. The first one is that this is a broadcast medium. All teaching, for the most part, in most schools in our country, follows this broadcast medium. It's unidirectional. Even though we ask for feedback from children and so on, the feedback is also in the mode of questions and answers. The feedback is also invited as a kind of test, right? So learning is considered to be unidirectional in these kinds of modes. And the other is that it's passive. I don't need to make this point any harder than social media has already made it for us in this day and age, where the consumption, the quiet consumption of material that somebody else has created, the ways in which it shuts your mind down, the ways in which you don't participate in it as actively, as you would if you were writing a story, if you were even reading it, in fact. Most of you who are in love with books probably already know this, but for those of you who've not come across it, there is enough neurobiological evidence for this. We've got these two language areas in our brain that we've identified. I'm sure there are many more, but there are two. One is called Wernicke's area, and the other is Broca's area. And these are for interpreting sounds, interpreting words, but also then for meaning making partly through memory and partly through imagination. And what we found is that when we read books, when we are allowed to imagine the contexts within which stories are unfolding, there are parts of our brain that become active that seemingly shouldn't if you're just sitting in one place and reading. So if you've got a protagonist, for instance, in a story who's running, the motor cortex in the reader's brain becomes activated. When you're watching somebody run on screen, it doesn't. The passivity of the visual medium imposes itself on your brain. But when you're reading textually, your motor cortex becomes engaged. And this is true of other parts of the brain that deal with other forms of interpretation and meaning making and so on, right? And so what we wanted was to figure out a way that would be less about broadcasting, unidirectionality, passivity, and more about active or proactive engagement with this material. And so we returned to what had started for us as an ice-breaking exercise, which is art and storytelling workshops. You will see on the left side of your screen, Gayatri Thakur is there with a bunch of kids in the Gram Mangal School workshop. The other person with her, eyebrows shooting into her hairline is Nivedita Deshmukh, who is one of the design associates who works with us currently. And this is what we found these art and storytelling workshops, helping us create. Ruchi is on the top of your screen with a painted wall done by students again from the school in Khun. Priyasha is at a workshop in Dehradun. Uttarakhand is one of the places that we've recently been working in, Nainital and Dehradun. Priyasha is also an associate of the Let's Foundation. And this is what we began to do with children. We began to have them bring together stories that they had thought out or stories that they had borrowed or heard from anywhere and illustrate those stories collaboratively, even amongst themselves, not just with us. So there were groups of children who will put together stories and then they will draw out the stories that they have told us. Pay attention to that peacock on your screen. It's made with found material. And there were many, many peacocks that were made by different children. And then out of those, we select one or more to become part of the book that we are making after it. This, for instance, which is this book. I'm going to try and show you. Gayatri, do you want to open out Rokuru and show it to them? We are also we're trying out different formats of bookmaking as well by this. Yes.
It's Rokuru. And we open it to this. Yes, Alka, please talk to them about formats.
Yes. You'll see that it's very, very different from the way in which we would open a regular book, or what we call the default idea of what a book should be. And now Gayatri is going to try and fold it shut the right way. Perfect. And I'll tell you why I'm teasing her about this also. So the wonderful thing about this book was that it's a very different format. Okay. And it's got these paper things that are connected with cloth or canvas hinges in a sense. And then you can fold it and close it. And when I was teasing Gayatri, this has happened to us enough number of times that when you try to fold it back, you often fold it incorrectly. And it takes you a couple of tries to come back to bringing the cover on the front page. Now, as such, it would be a fun thing. So you did it, haha, and you change the way in which you fold it, and it's fine again. But when you're dealing with children who are trying to learn a language, and the entire book is a story in English, it becomes very hard for them to know, except for the cover page, it becomes very hard for them to know whether they folded the other folds in the right order or not, right? And so that was a failure of design. spectacular failure, but also spectacular in the sense of beautiful. The book was lovely, but we thought that we needed to figure out a way. And that's one of the challenges. Maybe I'll throw it out to all of you guys as well. That's one of the challenges that we've been grappling with, thinking, is there a way to create a book like this that can tell a story in whatever order, regardless of how it's folded? Right? So you take this story, and it's simple enough. There are 3 characters in it, and the characters are sort of, playing with each other, fighting with one another, and so on. And there can be many starting points to this story. We know that much. We've tried and got to that point. We've even tried out different forms to use so that folds become unimportant, but they're fun to do. But we haven't yet nailed the solution where you could fold it any which way you like. And when you open it, the story will still be cogent. It'll still make sense. So, I'd be happy to share the PDF of this thing with you guys, and maybe you guys can try it out too. So the idea was to take something like this and convert it to something like this. A page of a book, polished, printed, published. Here are some more pictures of the workshops that we've done. One of the more beautiful things that came out of these workshops, and again, we were learning as we went. And so we were changing our path, tackling new things, as we went along. One of the more beautiful things that came out of this workshop is that as we were teaching these children how to convert their stories into books, we were actually teaching them to create books as well. We were teaching them to do page design. We were teaching them to understand what text-image relationship is or can be. We were trying variations on themes, and converting all of this material into things like this. You will notice that this is in Telugu. For those of you who understand it, you might be able to read a few pages too. What these kids were learning to do was to bind these books. Once they had finished drawing it, we'd make multiple copies of every page so that every child, every student could take a copy of this book home with him or her. And then they'd take it home. And oftentimes, for the majority of the kids that we worked with in the early days, this was the first book that they had ever owned. The first book in their personal library. But it wasn't just any old first book. It was a first book that often always in fact, carried their names. We wanted to shout out from rooftops the fact that bookmaking is a collaborative enterprise, that there is no single author as genius, that there are storytellers, then there are illustrators, then there are editors and translators, then there are book designers, then there are jacket or cover designers, then there are printers, and then there are publishers. Any of us who writes a book knows that that is true, knows that this is a team effort. And yet, for all of us who've written books, we know that as authors, ours is the only name that comes on the cover. And we wanted to change that travesty a little bit. These days, in more recent times, as comic book formats have become much more, graphic novel formats have become much more prevalent, you're beginning to see the names of illustrators become really prominent too. This is like the 21st century, a quarter century in. The 21st century is the time when illustrators are being given their place in the sun, which was given to script writers thanks to Salim and Javed in like 1970s in Hindi film now. Otherwise, you never knew who the script writers were. These were the 2 guys who insisted that their names would be on the posters, on the banners that spoke of the films that they wrote, right? And that's what happened over here. These kids would jump out of their skins when they saw their names on these books. And why wouldn't they? I do still, if I write something and my name shows up somewhere, right? And what we would do after this is we'd bring these books or one copy of it, scan all the images of the original illustrations and so on back with us, polish it a little bit, and print it. And this is one of the sets of books that exists with us. I wanted to also showcase to you, like this is what it looks like. This is the Telugu version. These are the copies that the kids took home with them, right? And then this becomes this book when it's being used for English language learning. So you have the same story with the names of the same kids, except that there's a translator and editor's name added. There is a book designer who handheld these students in the workshop, who then works on polishing the book design, and this is what goes to them. These books then, 3 to 6 copies of it return to their school libraries. 2014 to 2021, as I said, this was a project at IIT Bombay, very generously funded by the Tata Center for Technology and Design. And it brought together so many of us, young people, older people, people who had a vision for their schools. All of the research associates, design associates that I have worked with have been just joys of life. You know, the heart, the mind, the talent, the effort that they have all brought into this place is something that I really don't have enough words to talk about. The amount that I have learned, the amount that Gayatri and Aarti and I continue to learn through our foundation. Again, words fail us in talking about this. Sanket Petkar, once we became a foundation, which was in 2021, we moved out of campus, of course, but we also moved more broadly into the country. You know, we did a workshop in Madhya Pradesh. We've done workshops back in Andhra again, but with different groups in northern Karnataka, in eastern Maharashtra, in Uttarakhand. The most recent ones have been in Uttarakhand last year, in Seemgaon, in Nainital district, and in Dehradun. And this particular video that I'm going to share with you right now is a little excerpt from one of the earliest books that we made with these kids. I'll show you the book also. Do you have the monster and the little boy with you, Gayatri? Would you like to show that a little? No? Okay, let me show it then. Okay, again, the names of all the people involved in the making of the book, and then the book itself. Right? And this is the story of Bhuka the monster. And Sanket, who's an award-winning book illustrator and designer, absolutely all-round wonderful human being, and who has a deep love of theater and performance, decided that we need to include performance in our storytelling and art workshops. And he said that when children are asked to imagine a character and then to inhabit that character, they will write them differently. And it proved to be true in this workshop that we did at the Happy Children's Library, our first library setup workshop, in fact, in SEAM last year.
नहीं, मैं हूं भूखा, सदियों से भूखा। मेरी माँ सातारा के चुड़ैल के यहाँ घर के यहाँ काम करती थी, और मेरा बाप शैतान के ड्राइवर के साथ पत्ते खेलता था। पत्ते पत्ते जानते हो? पत्ते खेलता था। खानदानी राक्षस हूं मैं, खानदानी, एकदम खानदानी राक्षस हूं। और अब मैं तुम सबको ग्रहण कर जाऊंगा। मैं खाऊं?
So we had these children at the Happy Children's Library have actually had theater groups visit them and do workshops with them. And so when we began the workshop, on the first day itself, they have been asked to prepare small skits and enact them. And then Sanket did this performance. And later on, when they wrote their stories and were asked to enact those, the characters in the stories were just 3 or 4, right? But there are, as you can see, 30 children who were part of this workshop. There were 3 stories written by groups of 10 children in each group. And we challenged them to not use any props except their own bodies, so that children had to be rocks, children had to be trees, children had to be monkeys or humans or monsters. And because they were being rocks and trees and gates and homes as well, each child actually enacted 3 or 4 roles. And the difference in their storytelling, just at the end of a 5-day workshop, was incredible. And so from here on, Sanket has in fact taken this story to a couple of other workshops as well in Bangalore and one other place, Gayatri. He's done 3, once at IDC, at the
That's
IDC School of
nice.
Design
Yes.
itself with undergraduate design students. And our aim is now to take all the stories that have been put together by us with these children and see if we can create performance pieces of,
नहीं
right? This is the set of books. So many stories, show to tell, to perform. I mentioned earlier, you will remember the importance of listening to language in order to be able to understand its flow and its rhythm and its meter, but also pronunciation, right? And in service of that aim, one other thing that we tried to do, given that I am at the design school and there are animators, animation students with us, we thought that we would convert some of these stories into animation films. Before that, we also have an app that uses PDFs of the books with theater artists giving voiceovers for those stories, and where children can listen to these stories on their mobile phones, right? It's called the Let's Read Aloud app. And we'll talk about that a little later if anybody's interested in knowing more about it. But this is one axis on which we are working these days. Early on, we were also making animation films of our short stories. And here is a little video about animation at Let's. All the artwork you will have noticed came from the books that the children have created. This was a particular challenge for these animation students for two reasons. One is that the artwork it's complete, right? The books are complete. So whatever drawings the children have made, although not all of them have been used, they have stances of the protagonists, the creatures in the story and so on, that are very fixed and particular. When an animator takes it up, he or she has to look into how to make that movement seem smooth. And often the limitation of the amount of art that we had collected from these children became a barrier. And yet to transcend that and create these films has been incredible. The other challenge, of course, is that with these animators, they want to be in control of the stories, of the characters that are created and so on. So it's an act of enormous grace to take the work of young people from around the country and say, let's take the story and try to make an animation short out of it. What we did after these animated films were ready is, you must have seen it in part of this film also, is that we added karaoke style highlighted captions that a voiceover artist read out, and as they read them out, the highlighting would move so that the child could connect the sound that he or she was hearing with what was on the screen. Here's a short clip from one of the completed films, which is of Rokuru, a book that Gayatri just showed all of us.
In a forest lived a peacock. He loved eating ghee. One day, he ran out of ghee. He was angry. He thought of his friend, the rooster. The rooster was really tired. He had spent all morning crowing. Rooster, rooster. Will you get me some ghee from the market? The rooster did not want to go anywhere. He also had to look after his children. But he was afraid of the peacock's anger. So he agreed.
I bring you all of this. You will see that I've been talking mostly about children. I should mention, and Gayatri will elaborate on this a little bit more, that we have also been doing some teacher training programs. We've worked with teachers connected with the Agastya Institute International Foundation, which is based in Kuppam on the border of Andhra and Karnataka, which works in a tri-state area in southern India. Their reach also is pan-Indic, but their greatest focus is on those 3 states, and we've worked with some teachers over there. We worked with teachers in a school in Malad in Mumbai. In fact, in 2023, we had a year-long association with them, 6 or 7 workshops, which started with student workshops, but then began to include teachers, and then we watched as teachers ran workshops. The idea being, of course, to get more collaborators, to get more eyes looking at process, changing it, to get more minds involved with what else can be done and how, and especially how they can take these ideas into their own context and make them context relevant, tweak them so that they fit or suit their purposes. All of this, in some sense, to reimagine education, reimagine it in our context. So much has already been written about and experimented with in terms of pedagogy. But I feel that at the scale at which we think of education for the average Indian child, we have a long way to go. The inclusion of art as pedagogy in the national education policy is a really heartening step. But there is much work that still needs to be done. There is a lot of curricular pressure in our lives, in the lives of all of us. Teachers, probably librarians see that pressure as well. But I feel that libraries and librarians, those of us who love books know this, can create in our minds and in our lives the time to talk about the love of books, to become more playful about access to learning. And that's one of the primary reasons that we feel that the lacuna in the collaborations that we've had so far, the space that was left vacant because we had not yet approached all of you. So thank you doubly to Neeta and Apeksha and all of you who are part of this, can be filled, by those of you who think books, who dream them, who slurp them up every opportunity that you get, so that we can move from broadcast to conversation. And we can move from consumption to co-creation. Move basically from here and here to here. Where when you look at books that you have made with names of people that you recognize, places that seem like your own. You have a collective love, a sense of ownership that is deeper and that is able to see itself in what is being used as a learning medium. Books as mirrors, not just as windows. I'm going to hand this over to Gayatri now, and she'll take you ahead, more talk about libraries and librarians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you. I wish you'd just go on. But you bring us to that part of our interaction here, where we are asking you why we're here. You know, we're telling you why we're here, and we want to know from you how we can make more happen. Alka spoke of us working with teachers. We had almost a year-long engagement with a school in Mumbai, which is in the middle of a slum, and it was fabulous learning. But we were working with adults for the first time, not for the first time, but for a longer period of time in a city-based school. There were teachers who came up with all kinds of challenges. They said, we don't want to do this. We want to do this much more, and we don't have the time, and so on and so forth. And yet they collaborated, and yet they sat down and learned how to make stories. They went on to teach their own students how to do this in the various subjects they taught. And we were awed. We knew that there is a larger picture that we must tap. We must move out and not just speak of teachers. We must speak to libraries, librarians, because they are such an important feature of what we do. Now, Alka spoke of the various stories that have been created in our workshops, in our art and storytelling workshops. She spoke of the books that have been co-created, published by us. But let me also add here that these very books have gone to not just these communities and schools, but to rural libraries across 14 states in the country. Yes, we send these books, all of these that Alka has shown in her presentation, in our presentation, to rural libraries across, yes. We have 16 titles, and there are 3 more in the works, which are waiting to come out. We are at this point in conversation with our printers and our designers, and we're making sure, we're hoping that we really cross the number 20 mark this year. These books are for you. They are here for all you librarians. We are hoping that they reach through you to many, many, many more children, many, many more libraries, where more ideas can be shared, where Alka, yes, I'm totally in agreement with you, Joanne. The quality of the books is so beautiful, and that's what we've been told by people, who see these books and who come back and ask us, can we make these books too? Can you help us make these books too? Can you come to our community? Can you come to our library and work with us? One such story we have is of Swara, who is in Dehradun. She was sent one of our sets. She was sent 10 books of our, 10 of our titles. And we didn't know her. She called back and she said, can we do this here in Dehradun? Now, she is somebody who has made such a difference to reading in the few government schools that she's working in Dehradun. And she brings along her own heart. She takes along her own talent, her own heart to these spaces, collaborating with what is called a government school, with the teachers there, and still making sure that she's really wanted. She was the one who made us come to Dehradun to do a workshop with 2 government schools. Now that is a mover. Now that's an agent for us, somebody who loves books, who is running her own reading program, who's doing it independently. And that's what was a wake-up call for us, because we said, we'd like to connect with librarians. We'd like to connect with libraries. Yes, it's always like exactly the word passive. We've been sending it to libraries this far over the past 3.5 years. It's time for us to go to you, come to you, and work with you, collaborate with you, understand what your stories are, understand what your communities are, what your children speak. What are the ideas? What is the imagination that runs there? What is the context that runs there? Build stories, build narratives, make you part of us, collaborate with you, collaborate with your communities, and co-create a lot more together. That's what we'd like to leave you with at this point of time. We'd like to know from you how you want to be involved. What is it that you see in us? What is it that you want to know more about us at this point? And we are now throwing it open to all the questions that you may have. In fact, I have made notes of a few. I do not know if I see several more which have come up, but we'd like to now throw it open to questions that you may have.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, so Shweta, you had a lovely question. You wanted to know about the Read Aloud app. That I
Yes,
remember
I
seeing.
actually have multiple questions.
Okay, please
Uh,
shoot.
So I'm going to just put the questions and then you can, go ahead and
Awesome.
answer. So the first, of course, was the app.
Okay.
And second, of course, the books and everything. I mean, we do have our students doing it in English,
Mhm.
but for me, seeing this, my school is in Hyderabad. So I just was very excited to see it happening in a language which is not
Telugu.
English. Yeah, and Telugu, and it happened to be Telugu.
Yes.
And it was so brilliant, and I can just imagine the many, many possibilities. Although I come from a private CBSE schools and not that. So, but
Okay.
this is something that even our students, like we have the resources and all, but yet we cannot offer it because we just don't know,
Okay.
frankly speaking. So I, of course, want to know how we can bring it to our children.
So I'll tell you, the first thing that we can do is we can send you our books. Okay, that's the first thing. You'll need to see our books. Let's get into conversation. Let's talk. Let's speak about what you need. How is it that we can work together? Who are the people that are going to be making these stories? And then we'll make a plan and we'll work. Let's do it. All you
Sure,
have to
ma'am.
do is have a conversation with us. We're happy doing it, and
Yes,
we're happy taking this
it's,
forward.
so it's going similar to that was a thing about age. What was the age, this thing, ma'am, that the
We should have
students?
mentioned that. Sorry.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
typically we work with children between 9 and 15 years of age. We have seen, of course, that between 9 and 13, they're a lot more active in terms of story building, and ready and eager and keen, and also not afraid to explore newer ideas and not worried that somebody will judge them. So we see that brightness in that age between 9 and 13, but we usually work between 9 and 15 years of age. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. So I think what I need to do probably is number one, get in touch with you, right? To
Yes,
begin the
yes,
conversation, get the books,
yes,
and
yes.
then we'll go from there.
Yes,
So I hope,
absolutely. I am leaving my
yeah.
email ID as well for everyone to be in touch with, and I'll be happy taking on conversations with you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so
there are a
much,
couple
ma'am.
of other
I'm
people
so
in.
excited
Yes,
about this. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yes,
fine.
yes,
Please.
yes,
Sorry,
please.
Gayatri, just saying there are a couple of other
Yeah,
people
yeah,
also who
I'm
have
just,
specific requests
questions, right?
about working together, and we should
Yeah,
definitely have conversations on
absolutely.
how
In
possible.
fact, Alka, I think we should speak about Let's Read Aloud at this point of time, the app because there were two people, there was Shweta and Gauri, who both
Yeah,
asked about the Read Aloud app. Would you like to take that?
sure. What are they asking about the Read Aloud app?
They want to know a little more about it.
Okay,
Let's talk of our
so
titles and stuff. Yeah.
right. So, I also wanted to mention, I should have done this when I was showing you guys the animation films, because these are also young men and women who are working on our films and part of our team in that sense. The animators, so the Rokuru film that I showed you guys, the animator is a young man by the name of Gyan Selvam, who was also a student at IDC and graduated with a with a degree in animation filmmaking. There were two films, Clever Kalyani and Boy and the Calf, that have been made by Abhishek Varma and a couple of his associates. Umesh Wagh was working on the Boy and the Monster film, but it's sort of got stalled at the moment. It's very resource intensive animation filmmaking, as most of you know. Mitra Patil is another young animator. She worked on Khichdi, and those are the 4 completed films that we have. In the app, it was available on Google Play until very recently. And then Google took it off its list because the monster and the little boy is apparently too violent a book. It has a lot of blood and gore that it shows. We should show them our myths and epics a little bit, for them to know what blood and gore actually means. In any case, what we're thinking is that we might take that story off of the app so that all the other stories at least can come. The voiceover for almost everything so far has been by Mansi Multani, who is a theatre artist and quite active on the Bombay theatre scene. And so, yeah, that app is going to be available again on Android. It is not yet available on iPhone, but all Android OS should be able to take it. And hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have it up and running again.
Yeah, and we'll be
And we'll
happy to
add more
share.
books as we go.
Yeah.
And we're very willing to share, of
We'll
course.
be happy to share.
Yeah.
It's free and it can be
The
shared and it can.
more people see it, the more
Exactly.
joyful it is. Yeah.
And we do know that people love reading it along with their books, so
Yeah.
we'd love to share
Yeah.
them too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alka. Aparna Sri Prakash, in fact, had mentioned about two things that I wanted to come back to her about. She spoke of a couple of circular stories that the kids love. Aparna, if you could speak about that. And yes, you also spoke of a similar process with children with disabilities through our library. We'll speak about something that we also did, but soon after you have spoken about what struggle you did, struggle you had.
Hi, Gayatri and Alka.
Yes.
Yeah, we made a bunch of circular stories here at the library. And we haven't tied them together in any way because children work better when everything is left a bit free. They go in a gigantic envelope to the children, and they they just organize it and retell it in any way they want. So that's it. We have two stories, circular
Lovely.
stories. They're very simple, but the
Nice.
kids really love that process, that sense of control that it gives them.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
The
Where do you
second is
work, Aparna? Where do you work?
we are based in Chennai.
Okay. And proper Chennai?
Alka, you and I spoke free. We almost met. You almost made it to the library on your last trip to Chennai. I think just after the conference here in January.
IADEA conference. Yes,
That's
yes,
correct.
yes.
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
Um,
It
this
was the Chennai taxi drivers who abandoned me.
that is absolutely right. It was the
Oh,
Chennai
right.
taxi drivers that
Two
interfered
of
with
them
us.
cancelled on me after making me wait 2 hours. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember. I remember. What
This
is the age group, Aparna, that you are talking about? These children?
we serve children. We don't have a very strong age group requirement. It's more that all the children here are early readers. I'll say it's more about
Okay.
the reading age than the actual age.
Okay.
That's very well put.
That's
The
young.
That is
Yeah.
true
disabilities
in
are wide
rural
and
schools too.
varied. We work across quite a range of disabilities.
I love that. Yeah, I love
Lovely.
that.
Lovely. Lovely.
It's not age, it's age of reading or ability of reading.
Yeah. You spoke of, you've also written about working with children with disabilities. In fact, I'd like to mention here that there was a particular collaboration we've had with the Disability Entrepreneurship and Leadership Foundation in Gadag in Karnataka. They came to us saying that there were these 3 children in a village who needed help, and could we do some kind of a workshop where these 3 children could also be involved. And it was a beautiful exercise. I know that Ruchi and Nivedita, who are our design associates, were part of that entire, workshop. The 3 children blossomed beautifully. Yes, we needed help with people who understood how to how to communicate with children with disabilities, and it worked very well. But we were in awe of people who could do this, so seamlessly. So how did you do it, Aparna?
So we, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because this isn't Aparna and this is Joanne making us laugh in the middle of this conversation. This is Namita. We are just both of us sitting here at the same laptop. That's
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Namita Jacob, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
We followed a process that is strikingly similar to what you first described, Alka. We, instead of images, because we started the first time we did a story, or story creation, we did it with children with visual impairment and blindness.
Yeah.
And we went in with textures arranged in different ways on one piece of paper, that were not, they were just textures.
Yeah.
And we asked the kids to feel them, imagine what it could be like, and come up with their version of a story.
Yeah.
That was the beginning. And when we began, these were children who had zero experience of imagery, and that process told us how much they struggled to step away from exactly what they were feeling. So they could not make that leap. None of them could make the leap. They would simply say there are holes on the paper, there are ridges, there is this, there is that. But after a period where we just did stories with them with illustrations, and we went back with the same sheet of paper, they started weaving stories. And that was a very nice thing. The lesson to us, also on what they perceived and what it would take for them to push beyond. What we then started to do is to put their stories together in the creation of little books that then went back to them. So
So
we've done.
how did they access the books?
We lend them. The children are all our members.
No, no, no,
So
no. How did they access in the sense, like, they are visually impaired.
the
So
books are all adapted. All the books in our library are adapted. That's
they're
what.
in Braille. So, one of the things I was thinking, Namita, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in the Bay Area, right? You studied at Berkeley.
I was. That's right.
Okay. So then you know
We,
about the Exploratorium in San Francisco.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things that the Exploratorium does very well, and for all of you who've been to the Bay Area in California, you will know this, of course. But for those of you who haven't, they do this idea of like creating spaces in which you make, and it's completely dark, and you make your way through feel.
Right.
There was this exhibition I remember that they had where they had done the entire alimentary canal.
Right.
Okay, and you start from the mouth and you end at the rectum or the anus, right? Now, what I'm saying is for those parts of the body that we can feel, for instance, how do the teeth feel as they are arrayed in our jawline? How does the tongue feel? How does the palate feel? And so on. You could actually work with children where the idea of having to imagine something is much more materially owned by them, instead of
Right.
it being named by the world that creates things for a seeing audience.
Right. Right. Right.
Right? So that, because this is mine, it's my nose and it's my mouth and it's my ears and my head and my shoulders and so on. And you could even say the different parts inside your mouth, the uvula, the tongue, the molars as different from the incisors, and so on, are characters in stories. And see what children who do not have vision or have compromised vision do with things that they know very well by feel, as compared to children like ourselves who don't have this impairment. I can guarantee you they will create a different world. You know it
Yeah, I'm
before you
sure.
work with them, you know it better than I do, that will happen. But constantly to ask, this is one of the difficulties, right? To constantly ask people whom we read as impaired to find a way to understand our world as if that has ascendancy. that itself is a tragedy, no?
Right. So
Movie
essentially,
making,
the question, I think, at this point, the kids love creating and are very, very, very used to co-creating with us. So it is a wonderful process, one that we thoroughly enjoy with the kids.
yeah,
The question is more around creating the books that go back to them.
yes,
As with what you've done, what we do is take the base that they create and then work a little on it and present it back to them. A lot of what we struggle with is the whole format question, and like you, we've experimented with different ways of packaging our books,
yeah.
and so on.
Do you have
So
any examples
I
with you
just
right now?
sorry.
Is there something you can show us? Do you have any
Sure.
examples?
Yeah. Get line up, maybe.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Until then, Sushmita Chakravarti. Chakravarti, you have a question?
No, just wanted to share something.
Nice, Sarita.
Okay.
Can
Okay.
Yeah. Let her.
Just one thing to say, because I'm an alumni of IDC, so
Oh,
I
all
just did
right.
not control to share it with you all.
Awesome.
Alka, thank you for this session.
Thank
And
you.
it's get back me to my student life.
Lovely.
When did you
Nice.
graduate from IDC?
Sorry.
When did you graduate from IDC?
2011. I did
Oh,
my
that's it.
Just,
I missed you.
just.
I joined after that.
yeah.
Yes.
So, but what I wanted to just to add to this, I'm working on a project which is not for kids, but I am now in Calcutta. So I found, like while I was studying the elder group, aged people in Calcutta, because many of us have gone, like younger group have just migrated to different places, and fathers and grandfathers and all elderly people are left out here. It's a huge crowd. So we started working with their mental status and found that they have many stories to tell. It just we cannot like differentiate it between the kids how they want to like articulate their stories, but this elderly persons are also looking to articulate their feelings, their experience, and all these things. So I've started working with them, and it's such a lovely experience for us.
Awesome.
That how they are articulating that how they have grown up their children, what are the morals they are looking into, and now how they're feeling about. It's not great. The things, it's not people says that they are depressed or something. I never found it. I found it this they are trying to channelize, to vocalize like what they want to speak. Now they do not have people to share their stories, but we started to experiment with them, and it was a lovely experience. Like
Lovely.
how storytelling is also helping them to come out from the trauma that they are alone.
Yes, yes.
That's
Thank
what
you
I.
for sharing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
More power
Thank
to you.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
thank
Aparna.
you.
Aparna.
Aparna, Namita.
Yeah. Was it Aparna? Namita. I thought it was Aparna.
Aparna and Namita together is what.
Together, okay. Okay, that is a joke. I missed.
Yes.
Alka, Gayatri, sorry to interrupt. Do you just want to stop screen share so that anything that's being visually
There are things
showcased
that
is being
Gayatri
seen?
actually has to show in this, but she's going to show it at the end of
At
this.
the end, yeah.
So maybe we can share screen again in a moment, Gayatri.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Is that
can.
all right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes,
So,
Aparna and Namita. Yes.
this is one of the books that we have, and here it's about a child lining up a
Yes, thank you.
different set of
Ah,
doors, and here we have used different textures to depict different part of the room. Like, for example, it's different rooms in the house.
Yeah.
So, like ending in the door,
Uh-huh.
and then it's just
Nice.
nice. Very nice.
Right.
and the child lines up, and like you see here, we have like tile floors,
Yeah.
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 and then reaches back to his mom.
Right.
Very nice.
So
That's
we
very
do
cool.
work with
How
books
how
like
is the mother and the child being shown?
It's
How does the child
there's
know she or he has reached the mother? Are they
so
pop-up
the
figures? No,
They
no,
are,
no, they are just cut out.
they're cut
they are
out.
like kind of
Okay,
embossed, right? Like
okay,
there
okay.
is
They're
a
cut out.
different.
They are
Right.
in. They are felt in,
Yeah.
and essentially what they get is the difference in height.
Yes. Yes.
And that's it. It can be
Awesome.
boy or girl, that's up to
Yes,
them.
exactly.
There's
Of
a boy
course.
in the story, but they tend to do what they want.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
nice, nice.
As it should be.
This is a magnetized strip, so
Okay.
that as they line items up, they remain static and they don't roll off
Right.
uh, on the page.
Right. Lovely.
Lot of effort.
And I
Thank
like also
you.
that it's
Yeah,
accordion style.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, because the idea of the book was how many things he lined up from beginning all the
Yeah.
way to the
Yeah.
end.
And also there are houses that are like that. It's one room to the next to the next.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
on,
And
right?
typical houses here go inward, right? Like
Right.
rooms follow one inside the other.
Very neat. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice, 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 nice. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Aparna. Thank you,
Yeah.
Namita.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take our attention to Atri Ghoshal, who has spoken of how she's an educator with low-income and first-generation learners from migrant families in Kolkata. And she's co-founded her first library and literary project. And lovely to know about this. Lovely to know that you are teaching grade 5, Atri. And please, please, please be in touch with us because we'd like to know more about um, what you do, how you do it, and how we can collaborate. Are you here still, Atri?
I am, yes. Thank you so much. That
Yes.
really means a lot. I just want to say that like everyone talking about, like just this entire evening has been so lovely to hear about.
It has been for
Uh
us too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving all of us the space, and I will 100% send you a very lengthy email and hope that we can speak further. But yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's been
Looking
so nice hearing
forward.
from everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Looking
you.
Awesome.
forward.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward. Looking forward. Sarita Pawar says that her pre-primary librarian has done this activity, drawing stories in the
Yes.
academic year. Nice, very nice to hear that. Um, yes, so that's how we are. That's where we'd like to basically take many, many along with us. We specifically speak of librarians here because I have done a library educators course. I have friends who are library educators as well. And I um, have tried understanding what it is that brings them to this particular, um, this particular field because it's different. It's not what a teacher is. It's so much more than what a teacher does in a primary school, and yet so often not spoken about. Our work, our books go to schools, and it is the librarian who actually removes them out of the packs and takes it to the children. Our books are read out by the librarians, are you know are impressed upon. I mean, the children open them thanks to the librarian. And we know so little of them. We don't know enough librarians and library educators across the country. We'd like to do that. I mean, we very proudly say that we've reached over 140 rural libraries already. And we can speak of very few librarians who we are working with at this point. And that says so much already that here we are. I mean, we work with children, we will continue doing that. We work with teachers, we'll continue doing that. In fact, as we speak, we are about to roll out a teacher training program in rural Dehradun.
Oh, yes.
With teachers from 4 different schools that are run by not-for-profits. They have approached us for this last year. In fact, we tried applying for a grant. It didn't work. A few of our donors came ahead and said, let's make this happen because this was a geography where the teachers came and told us that nobody comes and works with them. There are no interventions that the teachers receive. And that's when we said, these are the people we'd like to work with. So what I'm trying to convey here is we like to work with people who we know work a lot. We know who work in a very, very unidentified space, and yet very little is spoken of them. And that includes, to a very large part, the librarians. And because we also take our stories to libraries, to librarians. Let's include them in our midst. Let's learn from them. Let's collaborate with them. Let's have them lead the children. Let's have them follow the children, and let's make many, many more geographies come together through this collaboration. And that's what we'd like to do. We are hoping that today's conversation, today's interaction with you has left a little thought saying, I'd like to be in touch with the Learn Through Stories Foundation. I'd like to be in touch with Alka, with Gayatri. I'd like to know more. I'd like to work more. I'd like to have them come and see what we do. Look at what wonderful things we do. They should come and see what we'd love that. We'd love to come with you, work with you, come to every geography, every corner that you are in. And we'll gladly do that because we love going to rural places, to remote areas. And that is for us a very important connect because, that's how this teach training program, in fact, came about. In fact, rural libraries in rural Karnataka, which are affiliated with the Gram Panchayat of Karnataka, there is a need there. There has been a need that's been shared with us. They have asked if we can do a longer engagement with the librarians of Karnataka. Now, well, if that is something we're already working on, we'd love it to know. We'd love it to do it with many, many more of you, to be able to build something together and to have you take the lead. So thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you. Alka, if you could leave them with that one last slide, tell them what we think, if that's possible for you. If you could share that one last slide.
Give me a second. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Gauri. I have shared I've shared our details. I will share them again so that you can be in touch with me. I hope this is helpful.
Yeah. There's just one thing that I wanted to say, an addendum to what Gayatri has said about libraries, and all of you wonderful people who work around books. Libraries, and you know this very well too, probably, that libraries in rural areas work quite differently from libraries in urban areas. In rural areas, almost all reading rooms or libraries are after school help places. Very, very often, children who are going to school are first generation schoolgoers. This despite the fact that, we are 76 years of independence and it should be different by this time. So their participation and their engagement with those libraries is a completely different kind of love affair of the children to the library. I would like to hear more about what it's like in urban libraries. If there are a couple of people in the audience right now, maybe who can talk about it a little bit. Like, are these libraries and reading rooms spaces in which multiple kinds of activities take place? Or what are the activities that take place? Is it ardently like a book readers, book lovers den? What are the various ways in which they get expressed in urban areas?
Anyone, please.
I just want to share something. I'm from Hyderabad, so which means urban. However, I'm a school librarian, so I'm restricted to the school timings. However, I do know that in our school library, we do offer multiple things, but that's part of the collective thing which is required, right? But I do know that there are some niche libraries which are run by individuals here in Hyderabad, where they do try to, but I think it's again restricted to summer projects or like an online summer project.
So
or
in terms of
summer camp and
your
stuff like
school
that.
library, sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
in
no,
terms of
no.
your school library, when you say that, it's restricted to whatever is planned, what are the kinds of things that are planned in the school library?
We numerous things. So obviously it starts from reading. So diverse reading, and
Yeah.
we try to bring across, and usually our children actually gravitate towards Western literature, so
Right.
we do try to bring in a lot of literature and a showcase from Indian authors and Indian illustrators and bring it together. So if you like this book, this is something which is similar, and also bringing in books
Yes.
written in regional languages. So we have our own little challenge here.
Yeah.
Our students get they're not naturally, they don't go naturally towards the Indian authors or
Yes.
illustrators or books.
Yes.
So that's where we come in. We try to make posters using those pictures,
Yeah.
like a picture from a, instead of a Harry Potter saying something,
Yeah.
we have somebody which is done by Rajiv Ipe or something, and then
Yeah.
we write something. So at least they have this visual thing that, oh, that's interesting, that's exciting. So you
Nice.
throw in those posters. We've gotten this whole lot of posters from Club where we
Right.
put it around. They've
Ektara is a wonderful
Ektara,
source.
exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Those people.
Absolutely awesome.
So they have got these funny poems and stuff, and they're
Oh
nice
gosh.
big
Yes.
posters. So
Yes.
those are the things that we try to do on our
Yes.
own. But
Yes.
truly, like I strongly believe that when it comes to their so-called second language,
Yeah.
it's like uh, it's two different worlds. Us, urban
Yeah.
children, they read so much of literature, and yet when it comes to regional literature or
Yeah.
even picture books, they're like,
Yeah.
they all become, I mean, I shouldn't, but they all become slow learners.
Yeah.
It's like I'm
Yeah.
pushing
Yeah.
them to
But
read
it is
Hindi or read
unsurprising,
Telugu.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is unsurprising though.
We also have this fantastic writers workshop done by our English department, where the children literally all through the school year read and explore books and eventually make their own book.
Yeah.
But I don't see similar things happening in the second language.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
why I actually wanted to connect with you, because it
Yes.
seemed so seamless that you all did it with all these things.
Yeah. But
And yeah, I
Yes, so
know.
this is one of the, when I was talking about earlier, like the third point over here on this slide, changing the landscape of children's literature. We, of course, all of us know that this is not the fault of the young people, right? This is not the fault of the children, that they are drawn much more towards Western authors or Western literature and so on. We have done a really great disservice to ourselves and to our children and to generations that were children 50 years ago and that will be children 50 years from now, frankly. We have a country with 22 official languages and we have no translators. We have literature that is rich in every state that you can think of and in multiple languages in every state. But we have absolutely no respect for teachers. We have no respect for translators. We have no revenue. We have no funding for this kind of thing, And so
Yeah,
if you
on
look at the
that point,
production
actually,
quality
the other
of the
day,
books in
I
India
and
also.
Eliza, I'm sorry to cut you first, but
Yes, please.
even apart from regional language, even in English, we were trying to curate folk tales from Telangana. And we were actually unable to, we wanted them in English only. But, to have students know their stories, like, but we just couldn't. We just
Yeah. So
reached a blank wall, brick wall.
here's my tuppenny worth for that. My background is in history of art. I'm an art historian, right? And I do Indian art history. And I can tell you with a guarantee that when people are shown miniature paintings, they can appreciate, oh, look at the brushwork, single hair brush, and dadi ka ek baal dikha rahe hain. Every hair of the beard is shown because it's a single hair brush. But this artist, what? I mean, did we not know perspective? Like, what was our problem? In 18th, 19th century, where Europe had perspective for 400 years by that time. But if you look at miniature paintings, you don't see much of a sense of perspective at all, right? Oh, if it's like Akbar, or if it's Shah Jahan, or if it's Rana Pratap Singh, those are the people, regardless of where they are within the frame, they will be the largest figures, even if they are distant. What is the problem here, you think? Do you think the artist did not know perspective? Or do you think that there was a completely different language of expression that both an informed viewer and the painter understood very well in the time in which these paintings were in ascendance? We have failed to showcase how to read a miniature painting. And then we bring the miniature painting to our children and we say, why don't you enjoy it as much as you enjoy a Rembrandt, or a Monet or a Picasso? And the fact that these Western artists have been talked about, written about, showcased ad nauseum somehow doesn't occur to us as, oh, maybe if you flood the space around young people with what is joyous and why it is so, we might have a different reaction. When we talk about narratives in India, and this is true of many other countries too, 57 countries or 54 countries in Africa, 47 countries in Asia, we have a very different sense of narrative that we think of as ours. But we have failed to understand how to appreciate it. And we have failed to transmit how to appreciate it. The narrative arcs that we talk about and teach these days all came from other cultures. We've embraced them. And we talk about it like that. I mean, even if you were to say 2000 years ago, somebody said it, you still talk about Aristotle. We don't talk about how does the story begin and end in the Panchatantra? What is the complexity of nested tales? Why are these characters behaving the way that they do? How do you bring that magic into the life of these children? Nobody is going to appreciate something from food to fun to reading to painting unless that is the joy that they see in the adults among them when they are growing up. If we as adults are ignorant of this, there is no way for us to transmit the frisson of that knowledge and that joy to the skin of the child. How do we expect them then to want to come and do folk tales of Telangana?
We'll have to, I think they will need to close in the next 2 minutes. So we'll have to, sorry, but
no worries.
Yeah, but thank you for the perspective. It's just that as an urban librarian too, we are faced with we
I
want
understand.
to we
No, we
want
are
to
not
bring in
even,
the
you're
stories,
quite
but
right, Sushmita. We are
we
not even a reading culture. I hear you. The task is
I'm
challenging.
unable to find the resources,
Yeah.
So
We should work together.
that's why
Collaboration is the
Yes.
only way in which to enrich each other and to pool resources. Then you feel less alone. You feel less like there is nothing. We will feel less alone. We will feel less like there is too little.
thank you for anyways the conversation.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Thank you.
Yes, Apeksha, Nirupama. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much, Gayatri and Alka. May I just request you to stop sharing your screen?
Of course.
You can just see the
I keep
participants.
forgetting to do that. So sorry.
No worries at all. I think I really take the liberty and speak for everybody that this was absolutely riveting. We've just been listening to all that you've had to share. You've taken us from the valleys of Himachal right into the beautiful, inner, rich, imaginative worlds of children. And really, I mean, just speaking about the role of the adult in children's lives, talking about how these stories need to be told and context and text. I think I've listened to every single word that has come out
Thank you.
today.
It's very kind of you.
And the beautiful, beautiful books that you all have created with these children.
Of them too. Thank
These
you.
children are
Yes.
creative.
Absolutely
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just I think the greatest, you've told us so much about art, design, storytelling. I don't know, like the conversation just flowed so beautifully. And we can't thank you enough for it, because when Apeksha, Neeta, and I, when we had this idea and said we want to build this community for librarians,
Yeah.
this is exactly what we were hoping for. That
Okay, awesome.
there is so
Awesome.
much value to the work that librarians bring. There is
Yes.
so much that in terms of reading, in terms of what the power of books can do for children. And we're so happy that there were so many questions, and to just hear all that the Chetna Trust, Namita and Barna had to share. I think absolutely beautiful, these cross conversations, and we're hoping for more of those too. So thank you so much on behalf of Librarians of India. And I extend our gratitude for doing this for us. And you've given us the perfect start to the weekend.
That's very kind of you, Nirvama. This is really, and thank you, all of you, for giving us the opportunity to be here. Gayatri and I have been excited about this too.
Yes.
Aarti, I'm sorry that Aarti could not be here. She also wanted this, but there were other clashing sort of commitments that she had to attend to. The third of us as a triad. But it's just been lovely. Thank you everybody for coming, for participating, and for talking to us.
And we're looking forward to everything, every conversation that this is going to take ahead. And I know there's a lot waiting to be done together in collaboration. Thank you. Thank you, Nirupama. Thank you, Piksha. And
think
thank
what
you,
you've done-
Neeta, for making this happen.
Nirupama, do you also just want to share that link? I can't
Yeah, I'm
locate it
just
in the
putting a
chat for
Padlet
everybody
link.
before they
Yeah, I'm
leave.
just sharing the Padlet link with everybody. If y'all can just show us some love, please write back to us on that. And, we'd love to share it with Alka and Gayatri. And it also gives
Yes.
us a sense of, what the kind of seminars, webinars people are interested in. So it'll be lovely to hear from the audience too. Here's the
Sure.
link. I hope everyone can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Gayatri,
And
throughout this, sorry, Nirupama, just
go ahead, Neeta,
one
go ahead.
little thing. Throughout this, I was just blessing Sachi for having
For having connected us,
connected
right?
the two of us. No, I had no idea at the time where this was going to lead, but I said, what's wrong in a conversation? Let's start somewhere and look
Exactly.
where, and I'm sure we'll go farther and
Yes.
have more ways to collaborate. I'm already, like I told you, my mind was buzzing when I spoke to you the first time, and it still continues to buzz.
Awesome.
You are
Thank you,
awesome.
Neeta.
Thank you. So much promise. Thank you.
Thank you. Nirupama, Apeksha, Neeta, and everybody else who's here.
Yes. Thank you.
I know Joanne is here. I know Namita is here. And all these other new people that I have talked to today. Thank you so very much.
A pleasure, totally.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Apeksha, can we leave? Is it okay?
Can
Nirupama,
we just
Apeksha.
ask you to just wait for a minute while
Yeah.
everybody leaves?
Yeah.
We will remove the spotlight.
Okay.
And
you.
I think